Don't stand in front of me, you incompetent fool. I'm a department head at a top company. My former classmate, Samuel, said this to me at our high school reunion, 15 years after we last saw each other. He wanted to talk to a woman named Ashley. So, he saw me as an obstacle. However, Ashley was clearly uncomfortable with Samuel's advances. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Besides, I noticed something odd about what Samuel said. Wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I fired you last month, Samuel? What? Then, I started revealing Samuel's current situation. As I exposed his failures one by one, his face turned bright red. Eventually, unable to bear the shame, Samuel left the scene. Ashley, who had been harassed by Samuel, was finally free. As we spent more time together, Ashley and I grew closer, and our relationship took an unexpected turn. I am Julian, 31 years old. I work at S Corporation, a trading company. This company handles a wide range of businesses, including energy, materials, and infrastructure. We have expanded our operations overseas, and with such a broad scope, our annual revenue exceeds $10 billion. As a company with a significant social impact, we are highly regarded worldwide, and the expectations placed upon us are enormous. Given the global reach of our company, the responsibilities are substantial, and I feel great responsibility for my work every day. Nonetheless, I find my work fulfilling and strive to serve the role entrusted to me. In fact, I lost my parents when I was in high school. After that, I was raised by my paternal grandparents. The shock of losing my parents was overwhelming for a 16-year-old. But thanks to my grandparents, I was able to graduate from college and grow up to be a well-rounded adult. The journey wasn't easy. The fact that I had lost my parents was known to my classmates. Hey, I heard you don't have a mom or dad. Well, Samuel was the one who taunted me about not having parents. He had a habit of looking down on anyone he deemed inferior. Such arrogance wasn't well liked by our classmates, but Samuel didn't care. So, you're living with your grandparents now? Yes. That sucks. I couldn't stand it. What's so bad about it? I'm not struggling. Not having parents was a source of insecurity for me. All my classmates had parents, so it was normal for them. Being mocked for it was deeply humiliating. I tried to act tough in response to Samuel's remarks, but when he pressed further, I didn't know how to respond and started to panic. You're probably living a boring, old-fashioned life, right? Eating butterscotch candies and licorice. Pretending to enjoy old recipes like Jell-O salad and sipping root beer? No, that's not true. I shook my head vigorously to deny his words. But he kept pushing. And you can't even go out. Who's going to drive? I enjoy living with my grandparents. I don't care if they can't drive. Pretending to be tough. Whatever. He laughed at me, looking down with contempt. Then, he'd boast proudly. Unlike you, my dad's a pilot. Isn't that cool? My dad is. What? In heaven, right? Hearing those words made me clench my teeth in frustration. My father had a respectable job that I was proud of. But when reminded that he's no longer here, I couldn't say anything back. My mom is a secretary at a company with an annual revenue of $100 million. Both of my parents are outstanding, which is why I'm outstanding too. Samuel's boasting made me feel miserable. I hadn't done anything wrong. I was content living with my grandparents and helped them to avoid being a burden. I had never complained about my current life. So why did I have to feel ashamed about losing my parents? When Samuel's taunts got to me, I considered talking to my homeroom teacher. But Samuel was indeed academically gifted and excelled in sports, making him a favorite among the teachers. I doubted they would do anything if I complained about him. Samuel's constant condescension and bragging made me increasingly gloomy. When I was on the verge of skipping school, Ashley, a classmate, reached out to me. It's awful, saying things like that. Everyone's family situation is different. It's my fault for not standing up to him. No, it's not. The one who says those things is the one at fault. She was very pretty and popular in our grade. She always had friends around her and was a top student. Even Samuel, with his arrogance, never looked down on Ashley. I didn't know why someone so well liked would support me. But whenever I looked down, she would come and talk to me. It's okay. Everyone knows he is a jerk. Don't let it get to you too much. Yeah. Thanks. If you ever need to talk, let me know. I'm here to listen. She listened to me many times. Just having her share and acknowledge my frustration made me feel a lot better. After that, I managed to graduate high school without becoming a dropout. I owe it to her that I got through those tough times. I wanted to stay close to her, but we went our separate ways when we went to college. We didn't exchange contact information, so we lost touch. I often wondered how she was doing. Years passed since high school, and I turned 31. Work had been full of ups and downs, but I finally felt like I was getting the hang of it. My grandfather, now 88, told me he felt reassured seeing how much I had grown. While carrying out my responsibilities at work, I received a notice about a class reunion. Apparently, it was being organized among our high school classmates. It was the first reunion for our group since no one had volunteered to organize it before. I debated whether to attend. There were many classmates I wanted to see. However, I might run into Samuel. That was the only thing making me hesitant to attend. I considered not going, but ultimately decided to attend. Despite my reluctance to see Samuel, I wanted to see my other classmates more. And above all, I hoped to see Ashley, whom I hadn't seen since graduation. So, I RSVP'd and hit send. Soon, the day of the reunion arrived. The venue was a party hall in the city. Wearing a suit, I arrived to find many familiar faces. I spotted someone I recognized and called out. Kyle, long time no see. Is that you, Julian? It's been a while. How have you been? Kyle was a classmate from elementary school through high school. Of course. How about you? I'm good too. I got a bit of a promotion recently. We weren't always in the same classes, but we often bonded over sports when we had the chance. That's great to hear. Yeah, with the promotion and more responsibility, I really feel like I've grown. Meeting my old classmates again made me happy, and we had a lively conversation. As I found more of my high school friends, we chatted and caught up on each other's lives. Though I had been worried about seeing Samuel, being here turned out to be a good decision, and I felt relieved. I was enjoying the reunion with my old friends when I heard a familiar voice. Come on, what do you say? Don't be like that. I'm already a department head at this age. Isn't that impressive? Not really. I turned to see what was happening. A man and a woman were having a conversation. I make $200,000 a year. How many people my age can say that? Isn't that something? Why don't you join me for a drink? I'm not interested in your salary. I'm looking for someone. To my surprise, it was Samuel pestering a woman. And the woman he was bothering was none other than Ashley. It had been a long time since I last saw her, but her face still held traces of her high school self. So, I recognized her immediately. Don't be so cold. The reunion is long. You'll find them eventually. But no one else here has achieved as much as I have. Don't you think it's good to have connections? Ugh. It seems Samuel was trying to impress her with his career and position. Seeing this, I realized he hadn't changed at all. She looked visibly uncomfortable. She surely didn't want to keep dealing with Samuel. She had helped me a lot in the past. Thanks to her, I managed to endure Samuel's bullying and complete high school. So, if she was in trouble, I couldn't just leave her like that. So, I decided to step in. Cut it out, Samuel. What do you want? Samuel looked at me irritably. Then he seemed to recognize who I was. Julian, is that you? He walked over with a big stride and peered into my face. Then, as if finding a new toy, he said cheerfully, "Long time no see. How have you been?" "Quite well. Did you manage to graduate college?" "Must have been tough to cover the tuition." "Yeah, I somehow managed, thanks." When I gave an inoffensive response, he laughed heartily. "You probably used scholarships, but good for you. These days, a high school diploma doesn't get you much." He always had a way of saying too much, and I felt drained just talking to him. I hadn't used scholarships, but there was no point in arguing with him. Ashley watched us anxiously. She knew I didn't like him. She was probably worried that I was forcing myself to interact with him. Though I disliked him, I couldn't ignore him harassing her. "So, what are you doing for work now?" "I'm working at a trading company." "Oh, a trading company. Trading companies can vary a lot, but you're not working at some sweatshop with no time to sleep, are you?" He clearly didn't think I could have a decent job. "It's not that bad, but it's busy." "Still, it's a responsible job and fulfilling." "Sure, but I bet the responsibility isn't much." He looked down on me as he spoke. If he was going to be like that, I figured he must be working at some prestigious company, so I asked, "So, where are you working now?" With a smirk, Samuel began to boast. "I'm at S Corporation." "S Corporation?" I widened my eyes in surprise. "That's right. Even you must have heard of it." S Corporation, including its subsidiaries, has an annual revenue of $10 billion. It's a globally recognized company. "Well," I listened, bewildered, as he continued. "I'm a department head in the main sales office. With incentives and bonuses, I make $200,000 a year." Impressive, right? I'm sure a salary of $200,000 is rare. Probably less than 1% of workers. That's why he was bragging so much. "So, move aside. Don't stand in my way, you incompetent fool. I'm a department head at a top company." He pushed me aside and tried to return to talking to Ashley. It was as if he had no time to waste on me. "Hey." She didn't seem interested, but Samuel was determined to drag her alone. His claims didn't add up, so I couldn't let it slide. I asked him directly. "Wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I fired you last month, Samuel?" "What?" He was taken aback by my question. Ignoring his reaction, I pressed on. "Isn't that right?" "What are you talking about?" He began to panic. His reaction confirmed my suspicions. I continued. "Your $200,000 salary was 5 years ago. Last year, it was around $40,000. And you worked at S Steel Services. Not the main office of S Corporation." "How do you know that?" S Corporation, being a huge conglomerate, had many subsidiaries. He had worked at one of those. Ashley, trying to understand, asked us, "What does that mean?" "No, well, that's..." He shot me a sharp look, as if to tell me to shut up. But I had no reason to keep quiet about this. There was no point in protecting Samuel's pride, especially when he was spouting lies to impress Ashley. If he was trying to deceive her with convenient lies, I couldn't let it slide. Samuel did indeed work at S Steel Services and secured a major contract 5 years ago, earning an impressive $200,000 that year. "Yeah, that's right. But that was only for that 1 year. In other years, his sales performance was mediocre, and his incentives were average. His annual income was around $40,000. As I laid out the facts, he fell silent, unable to argue. Finally, he ground his teeth in frustration and asked, "So, how do you know all this?" Seeing no need to hide the truth any longer, I replied, "Because I am the president of S Corporation." "What?" "The president of S Corporation." Both Samuel and Ashley were wide-eyed with shock. S Corporation is a global powerhouse. And almost everyone in the US knows its name. The fact that I was its president was understandably astonishing. Samuel, unable to believe it, stammered a rebuttal. "How is that possible? With no parents, how could you become the president of S Corporation?" "My father and my grandfather both served as presidents of S Corporation." "Your father and grandfather?" "My grandfather, Isaac Shane. He was the founder who built S Corporation from a small company into a major corporation. Originally, he had handed the presidency to my father. But after my father passed away, my grandfather took over as president again and continued to run the company. 6 years ago, my grandfather retired, and I took over as president. As the president, I was well aware of the inner workings of the company and its subsidiaries. It's true, Samuel, that your achievement 5 years ago at S Steel Services was impressive. Employees saw you as a hero. That's why I knew you worked there. But you rested on your laurels and didn't put in any effort afterward. Your performance dropped. And your annual income stayed at an average level. Well, that's... He couldn't refute my words, as they were spot on. You couldn't admit your mistakes. Instead of improving, you blamed others when things didn't go well. You complained about clients not understanding you and blamed your colleagues. His downfall was remarkable. From being highly respected, he became complacent and stopped trying. When things didn't go his way, he blamed others instead of reflecting on his actions. Saying that clients were difficult and other employees were at fault, he shifted the blame constantly. As a result, he became increasingly disliked within the company. Despite your attitude, your success with that major contract was undeniable. Believing you could reform. The headquarters transferred you from S Steel Services to another subsidiary, S Metal Center, as a department head. But you caused trouble there as well. Your relationships with employees deteriorated, leading to a strike. Ultimately, you were fired. About 3 months after his appointment at S Metal Center, the headquarters received a call. Employees complained they couldn't work under his tyranny any longer. Fearing the impact on numerous contracts, the HR and legal departments intervened. They listened to the employees' grievances. Apparently, he had been threatening employees to work unpaid overtime on weekends to cover their mistakes. Initially, the employees complied out of fear, but working without breaks wasn't sustainable. For that reason, the decision was made to fire Samuel from all S Corporation subsidiaries. Of course, he was not happy with this decision. He consulted a lawyer, but was advised to give up as he had no chance of winning. Therefore, he was fired without any means to defend himself. That was a month ago, but I wondered if he had managed to find a job since then. Seeing him lie about still working at S Corporation made it clear that he probably hadn't found a job since then. Given his arrogant attitude, it's likely no company wants to hire him. I was stunned and asked him, "What do you gain by lying like this, Samuel?" Such lies will be exposed in conversation sooner or later. Damn it. As I calmly revealed the truth, he couldn't respond and turned bright red. Unable to endure the humiliation of his failures being exposed, he left without saying another word. After he left, Ashley and I talked. "Thanks, Julian." "It's nothing." "Did he do anything weird?" "No." "You showing up really helped," she said, looking a bit troubled. "He started talking to me out of nowhere and wouldn't let me go. I'm not interested in who works where or how much they earn." "I see. Of course, it's important. But as long as I have enough money to live comfortably, what matters more is the person's character." She smiled wryly. It was clear that she wasn't interested in someone who would pester her despite her obvious discomfort. "Actually, I was looking for you, Julian." "What?" "So, do you want to chat more?" After that, Ashley and I spent more time together. We picked up some food from the table and sat down to enjoy the meal. While savoring the chef's specialties, we talked about our lives. "So, you're really the president of S Corporation now?" "Yeah. It's mostly tough, though. I wasn't sure if I could proudly say I was the president of a global company. But since taking over 6 years ago, I had grown and earned my grandfather's trust. I also felt that I had become more competent at my work. I wanted to believe that I was managing well, even if it was a bit forced. You're still in your 30s, so there will be successes and failures. But being the president for several years at your age is impressive. Do you think so?" I felt a bit embarrassed and smiled awkwardly at her praise. "Still, you've risen high enough to put Samuel in his place." "Is that how it seems?" She knew how Samuel had taunted me in high school. To her, it must have seemed like I had finally turned the tables. I hadn't thought about it much, but she might be right. Unlike him, I wasn't privileged and my academic performance was average. But I didn't blame others for my failures and worked hard to become a fitting president. While his arrogance led to his downfall, I managed to maintain my position. But I think the reason I'm able to work as president now is because of you, Ashley." "What?" Ashley looked at me, wide-eyed with surprise. Seeing her reaction, I continued. Back in high school, you listened to me. That's why I was able to keep attending school until graduation. I remembered high school. Samuel often mocked me for not having parents, making me feel depressed. But Ashley listened to me and made me feel less alone, giving me the strength to graduate. She remained wide-eyed at my words. I realized it might be the first time I had shared this with her. And she averted her eyes slightly, looking a bit embarrassed, and said, "It was nothing special. It was just a small thing. Even so, you were the only one who reached out to me back then, Ashley. I really appreciate it." I see. Her cheeks turned a little red as she said this. I was surprised by her reaction and wondered what was going on. After that, I asked her about recent activities. She mentioned she was working as an office worker at a local food company's branch. We had a great time talking about our jobs, future plans, and high school memories. Remember Mr. Simon back then? He was amazing. Yeah, really. Even during the sports day, he wore a t-shirt with all our names on it. As we reminisced, the reunion started winding down. Thinking about how quickly time had passed, I headed towards the exit of the party venue. Wondering when we might see each other again, I said, "It's a shame it's over. I hope the organizers host another one soon. Organizing something with this many people must be tough. We should be grateful they did it this time." As we approached the exit, she suddenly looked at me and said, "Hey, Julian." "Yeah? Can we exchange contact information?" "What?" I was taken aback by her unexpected request. Sure, I had enjoyed talking with her today. But I hadn't expected her to ask for my contact information. She looked up at me, slightly nervous. "What do you think?" "Sure. If you don't want to, it's okay." "No, it's not that. I'm really happy about it." I worried that saying I was happy might make me seem too eager. But Ashley smiled warmly. "I'm glad to hear that. I'm happy too." She looked so cute when she smiled that I found myself scratching my cheek and looking away. Before leaving the venue, we exchanged contacts through a messaging app. It was already dark outside, but the surrounding buildings were well lit. Some people were heading to an after party, but Ashley and I had work the next day, so we decided to go home. Once we left the venue grounds, we would go our separate ways home. So this was a real goodbye for today. She smiled and said, "I had a great time today." "Thank you. Same here. I'll get in touch. See you." "Hey, Julian." "Ashley." Just as we were about to part ways peacefully, a voice suddenly called out, startling both of us. To our surprise, it was Samuel. He approached me aggressively. "Julian." "Samuel? What's going on? I won't let you sneak off alone." Samuel's face was flushed red, and he was staggering. He seemed quite drunk, likely trying to drown his shame after being exposed. His intense demeanor made me recoil slightly. "I like Ashley too." "What?" I was confused by his words, but then it hit me. Ashley had always been pretty and attracted many boys in high school. It was possible that he had secretly liked her as well. That's why he tried to impress her with fake credentials at the reunion. As I realized this, he continued ranting. "I won't let you have her, Julian. So what if you're the president? I secured major contracts. She is mine." "Stop it, Samuel. You're embarrassing yourself." Unable to stand it any longer, Ashley intervened to stop him. He then turned on her. "What? Are you choosing this guy who has no parents? I'm going to get another job and rise to a high position again. I'll be better than him. Our parents' situation doesn't matter anymore. Stop clinging to the past." It was shameful for an adult to rely on their parents' status. Samuel couldn't handle this and got even angrier. "Damn. You think you're so high and mighty." Samuel advanced on Ashley. She glared at him while stepping back. Ashley was in danger. I stepped in front of Samuel to protect her. "Enough." He froze and looked at me. Ashley looked up at me. "Julian. A guy who clings to past glory like you can't take care of her. Who do you think you are?" You haven't even found another job or acknowledged your mistakes. How do you expect to make her happy? I glared at him and spoke firmly. Come back when you've changed your ways. Oh, okay, alright. He was startled by my unusually strong tone. He hadn't expected me to stand up to him. Eventually, he collapsed to his knees and then fled, humiliated. His quick retreat left us stunned. He had always bullied others into submission with his words. But now, facing resistance, he had no idea what to do. We watched, chuckling as he stumbled away, drunk and defeated. Later, I quietly warned other industry leaders about his behavior. However, his reputation as the cause of a strike was already well known. As a result, his reputation had already spread among companies in the city, so my warning might not have been necessary. Because of this, it seems he's having trouble finding a new job. He submitted applications but was repeatedly rejected. He refused to acknowledge his mistakes, blaming the companies instead of reflecting on his own faults. It was no wonder he couldn't find another job. As he continued his futile job search, he eventually had a falling out with his parents. He always bragged that his father was a pilot and his mother was a secretary at a company with an annual revenue of $100 million. For such parents, having a son who refused to acknowledge his mistakes and couldn't find a new job must have been embarrassing. Eventually, he was disowned by his family. He was kicked out of the house he had been so proud of, but it was his own doing. While he wasn't working, he needed to reflect on his actions. After the reunion, Ashley and I started exchanging messages through a messaging app. After a few dates, we became a couple. One day, after shopping, she spoke to me at a cafe. Actually, Julian, I've liked you since middle school. What? I was taken aback by this revelation nearly 20 years after meeting her. She and I had indeed attended the same school since middle school. However, we hadn't been close then and hardly spoke. We only grew closer in high school. I wasn't particularly talented academically or athletically. So what had caught her interest? I was surrounded by mischievous boys once, and you helped me out. Do you remember? Did that happen? It did. She reminisced fondly. You don't remember because it was just a natural thing for you. But I was really happy you helped me back then. After that, I started watching you from afar. As she mentioned it, I vaguely remembered. She was pretty and smart. She often caught the attention of boys and sometimes became the target of teasing. I had stepped in to help her. Julian, you're still the same as back then. Perhaps she saw the same person who had protected her from those boys in middle school and now from Samuel. As if she saw the moment she fell for me again. I didn't think I had done anything particularly commendable. But hearing it from her made me blush. I had been drawn to her, who supported me in high school. I had hoped to see her again, but I hadn't expected to get another chance to pursue these feelings. She and I continued dating, growing closer through outings and conversations. Our relationship was strong, and I felt we would grow even closer with time. We had both helped each other in the past. I was confident we could continue supporting each other. I had been consumed with work, but now I had someone who captured my heart. I want to nurture this connection with her while continuing my role as president.